The forbidden obsession. The galaxy was full of laws, some strict, some strange, and some that made no sense at all. But one law stood above all others. No species was allowed to trade, sell, or consume chocolate. To most aliens, chocolate was a dangerous substance. It caused unpredictable reactions. Some became addicted, some lost control, and others simply refused to eat anything else ever again. The Galactic Council had declared it a universal threat. Any species caught with chocolate would face severe punishment. But humans didn't care. The shadowed market. In the heart of Xiron 5, a bustling space station where traders from every system gathered, a hooded figure moved through the crowded marketplace. He kept his head down, avoiding the glowing eyes of alien guards patrolling the area. The air smelled of sizzling meats, strange spices, and metallic dust. Creatures of all shapes and sizes bargained, argued, and whispered in secret corners. The figure, a human named Jack Carter, moved carefully. He wasn't here for exotic weapons or illegal tech. He had something far more dangerous hidden inside his coat. He reached a small stall run by a four-armed alien with pale blue skin and sharp black eyes. The alien, Tyrax, looked up and hissed, "Are you insane, human?" Tyrax's voice was low, nervous. Jack smirked. "Depends on who you ask." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black container. Tyrax's eyes widened in horror. He grabbed Jack's wrist and pulled him into the shadows behind his stall. "Put that away. If they see you." "Relax," Jack said, his voice calm. No one saw anything. Tyrax's hands trembled as he took the container. He looked around to make sure no one was watching before carefully opening it. Inside, there were 4 small chocolate bars, neatly wrapped in golden foil. Tyrax gasped and immediately closed the container. He wiped his forehead, though Jack wasn't sure if it was sweat or just the natural slime on his skin. This is madness." Tyrax looked at Jack like he was holding a bomb. "Where did you even get this?" Jack grinned. "Earth, of course. We have plenty." Tyrax swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have brought this here." "The price of chocolate." Jack leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You're not interested." Tyrax hesitated. Of course, he was interested. Every trader knew that chocolate was the most valuable illegal item in the galaxy. The rich and powerful would pay anything to get their hands on it, but the risk was extreme. If the Galactic Council caught anyone with chocolate, they wouldn't just find them. They would erase them from existence. Jack shrugged. "If you don't want it, I'll find another buyer." He turned to leave. "Wait." Tyrax grabbed his arm. Jack smirked. He had won. Tyrax's voice dropped to a whisper. "How much?" Jack held up 4 fingers. 4 bars. 50,000 credits each. Tyrax choked. "That's robbery." Jack grinned. "No, that's business." Tyrax grumbled but pulled out a small metal device. He tapped a few buttons, and Jack's wristband beeped. Transaction complete. Jack handed over the chocolates. "Pleasure doing business." But before Tyrax could respond, something changed in the air. The market, once loud and chaotic, had gone silent. Jack felt a chill down his spine. He turned his head slightly, just enough to see a group of Galactic Patrol officers entering the marketplace. They were scanning the crowd, searching for someone. The hunter arrives. Jack's mind raced. Had someone reported him? Was it a setup? Tyrax shoved the container into his own coat and whispered, "Get out of here. Now." Jack nodded and moved fast, weaving through the crowd like a ghost. He didn't run. Running attracted attention. Instead, he slipped between stalls, keeping his face hidden. The officers moved closer. One of them, a towering reptilian alien with golden armor, raised a scanning device. It beeped loudly. Jack froze. The officer's eyes narrowed. He turned toward Jack's direction. "You there? Stop." Jack did not stop. Instead, He did what any smart human would do when carrying something illegal. He disappeared. The Great Escape. Jack ducked into a dark alley, slipping between metal crates. The officer followed, heavy footsteps echoing behind him. Jack reached for his belt and pressed a button. A small smoke device activated, filling the alley with thick purple mist. The officer coughed, blinded for a moment. Jack used the distraction to climb up a rusted fire escape, pulling himself onto the rooftops of the market stalls. Below, the officer growled, "Find him." Jack lay flat, heart pounding. He waited as patrol units spread out, searching. After a few minutes, they moved on. Jack exhaled. Too close. He tapped his wristband, sending a coded message. Seconds later, a small ship decloaked in the docking bay nearby. His getaway ride. As Jack slipped into the shadows, he smirked. He had sold his first batch. Now it was time for the real business to begin. The dangerous deal. The galaxy was restless. The Galactic Council had strict laws that most species obeyed without question. No weapons trading outside of controlled sectors, no genetic modifications without approval, and most importantly, no chocolate. The law wasn't just a rule. It was a command, enforced with ruthless efficiency. Any species caught in possession of chocolate faced instant exile, financial ruin, or worse, erasure from galactic records. But humans never cared about impossible rules. Jack Carter knew this well. He had just pulled off his first trade, and he was already preparing for the next. His business was only beginning. The underground market. The space station Xiron 5 never slept. It was a hub for outlaws, smugglers, and traders who lived outside the Galactic Council's reach. The main market was dangerous enough, but the real business happened beneath the surface, in the hidden tunnels that stretched for miles under the station. That's where Jack was now. He walked through a dimly lit corridor, the scent of burning plasma and engine grease in the air. Walls lined with flickering neon signs advertised everything from illegal weapons to exotic pets. But Jack wasn't here for any of that. He had 4 more chocolate bars, and he had already found his next customer. The buyer. Jack entered a small chamber hidden behind a rusted metal door. Inside, the air was thick with moisture, and the walls pulsed with a faint green glow from alien biolanterns. At the center of the room sat a towering alien wrapped in dark robes. His skin was covered in shifting blue patterns, constantly moving like liquid under glass. His 4 eyes locked onto Jack the moment he entered. This was Zorak, a name that carried weight in the underworld. Zorak was no ordinary criminal. He was a high-ranking official in the Galactic Council, a powerful figure, respected and feared. If anyone found out he was here, he'd be executed without trial. Jack smirked. "You're a hard guy to find." Zorak didn't respond immediately. He simply raised a hand. One of his guards stepped forward and dropped a metal case onto the table. It opened with a hiss, revealing golden credits stacked neatly inside. Zorak's voice was deep and slow. "Is it real?" Jack pulled out a chocolate bar, still wrapped in golden foil, and placed it on the table. He unwrapped it halfway, letting the rich scent fill the air. Zorak inhaled sharply. His blue skin rippled. His body was reacting before he even touched it. Jack pushed the bar closer. "See it for yourself." Zorak hesitated. Then, with a careful motion, he broke off a small piece of chocolate and placed it in his mouth. The effect was instant. The chocolate effect. Zorak's eyes dilated. His entire body froze as the chocolate melted on his tongue. The patterns on his skin shifted violently, flashing between deep blues, bright purples, and glowing golds. His breathing became heavy. His fingers trembled. Jack had seen this before. He wasn't surprised. For most aliens, chocolate wasn't just a treat. It was an experience unlike anything else. It triggered deep pleasure centers in their brains, unlocked sensations they had never felt before. For some, it was pure bliss. For others, it was overwhelming addiction. Zorak gasped. He clenched the edge of the table, his entire body shaking. His guards watched in concern, but none of them dared to interfere. Jack leaned in. Now do you see why it's banned? Zorak took a deep breath, then slowly relaxed. When he opened his eyes, they were filled with something Jack recognized instantly: desire. Zorak wanted more. The dangerous offer. Zorak tapped the table twice. His guard stepped forward, handing Jack a small data chip. Zorak's voice was steady, but his hands still trembled. I want more. A steady supply. Jack raised an eyebrow. That's a big request, even for someone like you. The alien addict. The air inside the hidden chamber was heavy. The scent of chocolate still lingered, mixing with the faint metallic tang of Zyron 5's recycled air. Zorak sat frozen, his 4 eyes staring into nothingness. His fingers trembled slightly, and the glowing patterns on his blue skin shifted like waves on a restless ocean. He had tasted forbidden pleasure, and now he was hooked. Jack Carter watched him carefully, a knowing smirk on his face. He had seen this reaction before. First, shock, then bliss, and finally, desperation. Jack leaned back in his chair. So, how's it feel? Zorak exhaled slowly. His eyes focused on Jack with an intensity that would have made most men uneasy. More, Zorak whispered. Jack chuckled. That was fast. Zorak's fingers tapped against the table. You don't understand. This is unlike anything I have ever tasted. The texture, the depth, the way it melts. He shuddered. It's perfect. Jack shrugged. That's chocolate for you. Zorak's eyes darkened. I need more. And I need it now. The price of addiction. Jack tapped the table, considering. He had been smuggling for years, but this was different. He wasn't just selling a product, he was creating a customer. And not just any customer. A powerful, dangerous alien who now had a taste for something he could never legally have. Jack smiled. I can get you more, but it won't be cheap. Zorak didn't hesitate. Name your price. Jack slid a data chip across the table. 5 million credits for the next batch. Payment in advance. One of Zorak's guards hissed in shock. That's insane. Zorak ignored him. Instead, he reached into his robes, pulled out a small metallic sphere, and tapped its surface. The sphere glowed, then released a soft chime. Jack's wristband vibrated. Transaction complete. Jack raised an eyebrow. No bargaining. No hesitation. Zorak was already too far gone. Jack pocketed the chip, pleasure doing business. But before he could stand, a warning light flashed on his wristband. Jack's stomach dropped. Proximity alert. Someone was coming. Fast. The raid begins. Outside, the underground tunnels of Zyron 5 erupted in chaos. Elite Galactic enforcers stormed in, their heavy boots slamming against the metal floors. Their armor glowed with pulsating energy fields, and their rifles hummed with lethal charge. They moved with brutal efficiency, blocking exits, locking down corridors, and scanning every life form in the sector. Their leader, Commander Vec, activated his comms. Target located. Secure the area. No one leaves. Inside the chamber, Jack heard everything. His eyes flicked toward the only exit. Zorak clenched his fists. His skin shifted to an aggressive shade of red. Who betrayed us? Jack didn't have time to answer. A loud boom shook the walls as the enforcers blasted through the door. Jack acted on instinct. He grabbed the table and flipped it over, sending credits and chocolate flying. Then he ran. Zorak's guards opened fire, unleashing green plasma bolts into the doorway. The enforcers responded immediately, their shields absorbing the attacks before they returned fire. Jack dove behind a metal crate as bullets and energy beams tore through the air. The deal was over. Now it was about survival. Zorak's rage. Zorak wasn't running. He was furious. He lunged at the enforcers, his claws extended. His body moved like a shadow, shifting in impossible ways as he weaved through gunfire. He grabbed the closest enforcer and ripped his helmet off, revealing a reptilian soldier underneath. Before the enforcer could react, Zorak's jaws unhinged, and he bit down. The enforcer screamed as Zorak's venom burned through his armor, leaving his body twitching on the ground. Jack barely had time to process it before he spotted a second exit, a narrow air vent near the ceiling. Jack sprinted toward it, vaulting over crates and dodging stray bullets. Behind him, Zorak was still tearing through the enforcers, his movements fueled by pure rage and addiction. Jack reached the vent and pulled himself up just as an enforcer spotted him. "Stop him!" Too late. Jack disappeared into the vent. The escape. Crawling through a ventilation shaft in a collapsing war zone wasn't exactly Jack's idea of fun. Below, the battle raged on. Zorak was still fighting, but Jack knew he wouldn't last forever. There were too many enforcers, too many weapons, too many traps. Jack had two choices: help Zorak and risk everything. Get out while he still could. Jack sighed. Guess I'm an idiot. He pulled out a small explosive charge from his belt, primed it, and dropped it into the chamber below. Boom. The explosion rocked the entire tunnel. The enforcers were thrown back, buying Zorak just enough time to escape. Jack kicked open a ceiling panel and dropped into the hangar bay above. His ship, the Midnight Runner, was already waiting. The engines hummed, ready for takeoff. Jack sprinted toward it, but just as he reached the ramp, a gunshot rang out. Pain. Jack stumbled, clutching his side. A red-hot plasma burn seared his ribs. He turned. Commander Vec stood at the edge of the hangar, his rifle still smoking. His golden eyes locked onto Jack's. "Game's over, smuggler." Jack gritted his teeth. Not yet. With the last of his strength, he jumped onto the ramp and slammed the door shut behind him. "Go, go, go," he shouted. The Midnight Runner's thrusters roared to life. Outside, Vec fired again, but the ship was already rising, already moving, already gone. Jack collapsed onto the floor, breathing heavily. The deal was ruined. Zorak was missing. And now, the entire Galactic Council would be after him. Jack grinned through the pain. He had just started a war. The chase begins. The galaxy was burning for Jack Carter. News of the Xiron 5 chocolate raid spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council had declared it a Category 1 contraband violation, a crime so severe that it carried only two outcomes: capture or execution. Jack had made the most dangerous sale of his life. And now he was the most wanted man in the universe. Escape into the void. Inside the Midnight Runner, Jack gritted his teeth as he pressed against the ship's medical scanner. The AI's voice was calm, almost too calm for someone who had just taken a plasma shot. Wound detected. Shallow plasma burn. Administering pain relief. A robotic arm extended from the ceiling, spraying a cooling agent over Jack's side. He winced as the wound sizzled and sealed, the burning sensation quickly numbing. He had no time to rest. Xiron 5 was now under full lockdown. His escape had triggered an interplanetary manhunt. And worse, Zorak was missing. Jack paced the cockpit, his mind racing. Had Zorak been captured? Killed? Or was he still out there, hungrier for chocolate than ever? A blinking red light on his control panel pulled him from his thoughts. Incoming transmission. Jack frowned. No one should be able to contact him on a secure frequency. He hesitated, then pressed accept. A hologram flickered to life in front of him. It was Commander Vec, a hunter's threat. Vec stood tall in the hologram, his golden armor gleaming under the Council's official war room lights. Behind him, Jack could see dozens of high-ranking officials watching. Jack smirked. "You missed me, huh?" Vec's reptilian face remained emotionless. "Jack Carter, you are now the most wanted smuggler in the Orion sector. Your actions on Xiron 5 have violated galactic trade laws. You have exactly one option. Jack leaned back in his chair. Let me guess. Surrender. Vex's voice turned cold as space. Run all you want. There is no corner of the galaxy where I will not find you. Jack exhaled dramatically. See, that's what all the bounty hunters say. And yet, here I am. Vex's eyes narrowed. Do you know what happens to criminals like you? Jack's smirk faltered. Because this wasn't a normal bounty. The Galactic Council wasn't just looking for him. They wanted to erase him. Jack's mind raced. The Council wouldn't stop at just him. They'd track everyone he knew, every contact he had, every planet he had ever visited. His heart pounded. This wasn't about chocolate anymore. This was about survival. Vex's voice cut through his thoughts. Enjoy your head start, human. The hologram vanished. Jack's radar started screaming. The pursuit begins. Jack turned to the console and froze. Multiple Hunter-class starships had just dropped out of hyperspace. They were fast, built to chase, built to kill. Jack slammed the ship's throttle forward. The Midnight Runner roared as its engines fired, launching him toward the nearest asteroid field. His comms crackled. Attention, Midnight Runner. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Jack grinned. Yeah, that's not happening. The first Hunter ship fired. A burst of red plasma streaked past his hull. Warning sirens blared. Jack yanked the controls hard, sending the ship into a spiraling dive toward the asteroid field. The chasers followed. The dead man's run. Jack gripped the controls, dodging massive chunks of ice and rock as he weaved through the asteroid field. The pursuing ships were right on his tail. A second plasma blast grazed his left wing. The ship shuddered. Jack cursed. If he took another hit, he was done. His eyes flicked to his scanner. A massive asteroid 10 times the size of his ship loomed ahead. An idea struck him. A crazy one. Jack pushed the throttle to full power. The ship raced straight toward the asteroid. Behind him, the hunters hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was all Jack needed. At the last possible moment, Jack pulled up and spun the ship sideways, scraping through a tiny gap between two asteroid fragments. The hunters weren't so lucky. The first ship crashed headfirst into the asteroid. The second barely managed to pull up but clipped a rock, sending it spiraling out of control. Jack whooped. Still got it. Only one hunter ship remained, and it wasn't backing down. Jack's scanner beeped. Incoming missile. His stomach dropped. He only had one option left. The final gamble. Jack reached under his control panel, flipping open a hidden compartment. Inside was a single-use warp drive injector. It was risky, a blind jump. It could send him straight into a sun, or worse, into Council-controlled space. But staying here meant certain death. He yanked the injector's trigger. The Midnight Runner lurched violently. Stars twisted, the ship spun into darkness, and the universe ripped apart around him. Then, silence. Jack opened his eyes. The ship had stopped moving. His radar was clear. No signs of pursuit. Jack exhaled, slumping in his seat. He was alive. For now. But he wasn't safe. Not yet. He had just made an enemy of the most powerful organization in the galaxy. And somewhere out there, Zorak was waiting. Jack cracked his knuckles and smirked. Time to get back in business. The big plan. The Midnight Runner drifted in the emptiness of deep space. The stars outside stretched into infinity, distant and silent. Jack Carter leaned back in the pilot's chair, catching his breath. He had escaped death again. But survival wasn't victory. Not yet. The Galactic Council had declared war on him. Zorak was missing, possibly captured. And now, chocolate smuggling was no longer a game. It was a business, and Jack was about to make it bigger than ever. The call from the shadows. The ship's comm system crackled to life. An encrypted transmission. Jack raised an eyebrow. No one should have been able to track him this fast. He hesitated, Then, with a sigh, he pressed accept. A hologram flickered on the screen. A hooded figure. Jack frowned. "I don't like mysterious callers." A distorted voice responded. "I have a business proposition." Jack smirked. "I'm already in business." The figure leaned forward. "Not like this." A second later, the hooded figure's face became clear. Jack's breath caught. It was an alien he had never seen before, one of the Council's elite advisors, a traitor within the Galactic government. Jack whistled. Well, if it isn't the enemy." The alien's sharp golden eyes glowed. "I am no friend of the Council. They think they control the economy of the galaxy. But you have something even they fear." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Chocolate." The alien nodded. "The first true addiction in the universe, a product so powerful that species across the stars would pay fortunes for it. A delicacy it could control entire civilizations." Jack crossed his arms. "And let me guess, you want in." The alien smiled. "No, Carter. I want to fund you." Jack blinked. That was not the answer he expected. The plan to go galactic. The alien leaned closer. "You need a base of operations." Jack nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. He needed a location far from Council control where he could safely process, package, and distribute chocolate across the galaxy. "I know the perfect place," the alien continued. "The ghost moon of Sci-Fi 9. Jack frowned. "Never heard of it." "You wouldn't have. The planet was abandoned decades ago after a mining disaster. No law, no patrols. Just a dead world, perfect for a secret industry." Jack's mind raced. If he could set up a hidden factory, he could flood the black market with chocolate faster than the Council could stop him. This wasn't just about smuggling anymore. It was about building an empire. Recruiting the right crew. Jack wasn't stupid. He knew he couldn't do this alone. A full-scale operation needed. Growers, people who could harvest cocoa beans from Earth and ship them in secrecy. Chemists, experts to refine and modify the chocolate to increase its effects on aliens. Distributors, smugglers who could sneak the product past planetary security. Security, because sooner or later the Council would come knocking. And he knew exactly who to call first. Breaking Zorak out. Before Jack could build his empire, he needed his first customer back. Zorak was missing, and Jack had a pretty good idea where he was. The Galactic Council had prisons across the stars, but for political figures like Zorak, there was only one place they would send him: the Orion Detention Facility, a floating fortress in deep space, built to hold high-profile criminals, traitors, and people who knew too much. Jack grinned. Breaking in was impossible, which meant he was going to do it. The heist begins. Jack's ship dropped out of hyperspace a safe distance from Orion Prison. From the outside, it looked like a drifting asteroid, except it was packed with defense turrets, security drones, and an entire fleet of warships. Jack sat in his chair, arms crossed. "All right, runner. Let's break the unbreakable." His ship's AI beeped. "You have no weapons capable of defeating Orion's defenses." Jack smirked. "Good thing I'm not here to fight." He had another plan. Step 1. The Trojan ship. Jack hijacked a transport vessel heading to Orion, one that carried food and medical supplies. Disguised as a delivery worker, he bluffed his way past security. Step 2. The blackout. Once inside, Jack activated a disruption beacon, cutting power to the prison's external comms. Alarms blared. Guards rushed to restore order. Perfect distraction. Step 3. Find Zorak. Jack sprinted through the halls, dodging patrol drones and security teams. His stolen uniform wouldn't last long. He needed to find Zorak. Fast. He hacked into a security panel, pulling up the prisoner database. Cell block Omega. Jack grinned. "Found you, buddy." The price of freedom. Jack reached Zorak's cell. The alien looked worse than before. His once vibrant blue skin was dull, his patterns flickering weakly. Jack cracked his knuckles. Miss me. Zorak's 4 eyes flickered open. I need it. Jack sighed. The addiction had already taken hold. We'll talk about that later. Jack pulled a hacking tool from his belt and started overriding the cell door. But before he could finish, B-E-E. Jack's heart froze. The security system had detected him. A full battalion of guards was already on the way. Zorak struggled to his feet. You should run. Jack smirked. Not without my best customer. With a final spark of energy, the cell door slid open. Zorak stumbled out. What's the escape plan? Jack's grin widened. Oh, you're gonna love this. He tossed Zorak a chocolate bar. Zorak's eyes blazed. Then, with renewed strength, he turned toward the oncoming guards. The chase was officially over. Now, it was time for war. The betrayal. The Orion detention facility was in chaos. Sirens blared. Guards shouted. Security drones hovered through the corridors, scanning for intruders. The power grid flickered as Jack Carter's disruption beacon fried the prison's security systems. And at the center of it all, Jack and Zorak. They were running through the facility's industrial maintenance tunnels, dodging energy blasts as guards swarmed after them. Jack's stolen uniform was torn, and Zorak was barely keeping pace, his body shaking from withdrawal. Jack smirked as they slid behind a stack of metal crates. Having fun yet? Zorak groaned, clutching his forehead. I would be if my brain wasn't trying to kill me. Jack reached into his coat and tossed Zorak a chocolate bar. Here, you're useless to me dead. Zorak snatched it instantly, unwrapping it with trembling hands. He took one bite, then froze. His 4 eyes dilated, his blue skin pulsing with shifting golden patterns. Then suddenly, he stood up straight. His body stabilized. His limbs stopped shaking. Zorak exhaled deeply. His voice was stronger now. I needed that. Jack patted him on the back. All right, buddy. Now let's get the hell out of here. But just as they turned the corner, a wall of guards blocked their path. And leading them was none other than Commander Vec. The standoff. Jack sighed dramatically. Man, you again. You really can't take a hint, huh? Vec's golden eyes narrowed. Give up, Carter. There's nowhere left to run. Jack glanced at Zorak. You believe this guy? Zorak cracked his neck, his body now glowing with renewed energy. I say we teach him some respect. Jack grinned. Thought you'd never ask. Before Vec could react, Zorak lunged. The air rippled as Zorak moved at impossible speed, his body enhanced by the alien effects of chocolate. He struck the first guard with a bone-crushing punch, sending him flying into the wall. Jack, meanwhile, rolled behind cover, pulling out his energy pistol. He fired 2 quick shots, taking down a drone before diving toward the emergency exit controls. Vec snarled, raising his plasma rifle. Enough. Jack felt the heat of the weapon lock onto him. Then, a deafening explosion. The emergency lockdown doors suddenly burst open, revealing an entire hangar bay. Jack and Zorak didn't wait. They ran. The betrayal. The hangar was filled with old transport ships, most of them decommissioned. Jack's escape plan was simple. Steal one. He sprinted toward a small freighter, its engine still running from a recent delivery. Perfect. He reached the door panel and hacked the system. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss. Come on, Jack shouted. Zorak was right behind him, until suddenly, he stopped. Jack turned, confused. What the hell are you doing? Move. Zorak stood still. His golden eyes flickered. Jack's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Then, in an instant, Zorak pulled a small transmitter from his belt and crushed it. Jack's heart dropped. The hangar bay doors sealed shut. An alarm blared overhead. Jack spun to face Zorak. No way. Tell me you didn't. Zorak's face was stone cold. I'm sorry, Jack. Jack's mind raced. You called them here. Zorak looked down. shame in his eyes. They offered me a cure, a way to erase the addiction. Jack felt like he had been punched in the gut. Vec's voice echoed through the hangar speakers. Jack Carter, you are surrounded. Surrender now. Jack stared at Zorak in disbelief. You sold me out over chocolate. Zorak clenched his fists. You don't understand what it does to me. Jack exhaled slowly. Then, without warning, he punched Zorak across the face. Zorak stumbled back, but he didn't fight. He just looked at Jack with hollow eyes. Jack shook his head. You just signed my death warrant, you idiot. Zorak's voice was barely a whisper. I know. The doors burst open. Armed enforcers swarmed in. Jack had seconds to act, and he wasn't going down without a fight. The escape gamble. Jack's eyes darted around the hangar. He had one last play. He sprinted toward a control panel near the main fuel tanks. Vec shouted, Stop him. Jack reached the controls and slammed his fist onto the override switch. A warning siren blared. Then, the entire hangar exploded into chaos. A chain reaction erupted through the fuel lines, sending fire and debris raining down. The explosion blasted through the shipyard, knocking everyone off their feet. Jack used the moment of distraction to jump onto a hoverloader. The small craft shot forward, weaving through flames and falling debris. Zorak called after him. Jack, wait. Jack didn't. He gritted his teeth, guiding the loader toward a small emergency launch pod on the far side of the hangar. Vec fired after him, plasma bolts nearly hitting their mark. Jack dove, slamming into the escape pod controls. The door snapped shut behind him. The countdown activated. 5, 4, 3. Vec's face appeared on the security monitor. You'll never escape us, Carter. Jack smirked. Watch me. 2, 1. The escape pod blasted off into the void of space, a broken alliance. Jack sat in the cramped escape pod, breathing hard. Zorak had betrayed him. Everything they had built, gone in an instant. Jack clenched his fists. No, not gone. Zorak thought the council could erase his addiction. He was wrong. And soon, he would come crawling back. Jack wasn't finished. He still had a plan. The ghost moon of Xiphos 9 was waiting. And now, Jack was going to build the biggest black market chocolate empire the galaxy had ever seen. With or without Zorak. He leaned back, staring out at the endless stars. His war with the council had only just begun. The final gamble. The escape pod shook violently as it punched through hyperspace, spinning Jack Carter into the unknown. He had nothing. No ship, no crew, no allies. His best customer, his supposed partner, had betrayed him. And the Galactic Council. They had declared war on him. Jack stared at the dim emergency lights of the pod, breathing heavily. He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because he still had one last move to make. A new home for a new empire. Jack's escape pod dropped out of hyperspace, spiraling toward a desolate, shadowed planet. Xiphos 9, the ghost moon. The place was legendary. Once a thriving mining colony, it had been abandoned decades ago after a mysterious accident. Now, it was nothing more than a dead world, unlivable, lawless, and forgotten. Which made it perfect. Jack landed the pod near an ancient processing plant. He kicked the door open and stepped out into the darkness. The air was thick, stale, but breathable. Time to build. Rebuilding the black market. Jack wasn't stupid. He knew that after Zorak's betrayal, the council would assume he was done. They'd think the chocolate trade had died with him. They were wrong. If he wanted to take back control, he needed a supply chain. A network bigger than anything the council could track. And he knew exactly who to call. Using a scrambled comm signal, Jack sent out a message across the underworld. A simple offer. You want credits. You want power. Meet me on Xiphos 9. Then he waited. The return of the outlaws. Days passed. Then they started arriving. Smugglers, pirates, exiled traders, cyber hackers, and rogue scientists. All of them had heard the legend of Jack Carter, the man who defied the Council and introduced the galaxy's first true illegal addiction. They all wanted in. Jack stood before them, arms crossed. "You all know why you're here. The Council wants to kill me, but guess what? They can't kill an idea." The crowd murmured. Jack pulled out a single bar of chocolate and held it up. "Gentlemen, this is the most powerful product in the galaxy, and we're going to make it bigger than ever." Silence. Then, laughter. A cyber merchant raised an eyebrow. "You expect us to risk our necks over candy?" Jack tossed the chocolate to a nearby alien, a reptilian smuggler named Grek. "Try it." Grek unwrapped the bar, sniffed it, and took a bite. His eyes widened. His pupils dilated. His breathing quickened. His body locked up for 3 full seconds. Then, he exhaled, trembling, as his scales shifted colors in pure euphoria. The crowd fell silent. Jack smirked. Now imagine selling that to an entire planet. The deal was made. The grand plan. Jack split his new operation into 4 divisions. Production. Growers on secret farms smuggling Earth cocoa beans through hidden supply routes. Refinement. Underground labs refining chocolate into stronger, more addictive forms. Distribution. Smugglers delivering shipments across the stars, avoiding council patrols. Security. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, and cyber hackers protecting the empire. This wasn't just smuggling anymore. This was an empire. And Jack Carter was about to flood the galaxy. The Council's desperation. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council's homeworld, panic was spreading. Commander Vex stood before the High Council, his fists clenched. Carter survived. He's rebuilding. The council members whispered in alarm. The chocolate crisis wasn't over. The head of the council, a towering being of pure energy, spoke. "If we cannot stop Carter, we must destroy the source." Vex frowned. The source. The High Council leader's voice echoed through the chamber. "We must shut down chocolate production at its origin. We must take Earth." The Earth invasion. Jack received the news too late. By the time his spies reported the Council's next move, the invasion had already begun. The Council had sent an armada of warships toward Earth itself, not to destroy it, but to lock it down. Every cocoa farm, every processing plant, every piece of chocolate in existence. They were cutting off Jack's supply at the source. Jack's fists clenched. This wasn't about smuggling anymore. This was war. The final decision. Jack gathered his best smugglers, best fighters, best pilots. He stood before them, eyes burning. "You've all made more credits in the last year than most will in a lifetime." His voice hardened. "But this isn't about money anymore. This is about control. The Council thinks they can take Earth. They think they can erase chocolate from history." His hands curled into fists. "They're wrong." Jack looked over his people. "I'm not asking you to fight for me. I'm asking you to fight for the right to choose, for the right to defy them, for the right to live in a galaxy where they don't control everything we eat, drink, and do." Silence. Then Grek stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "All right, Carter," he growled. "Let's take our chocolate back." The room erupted with cheers. Jack grinned. He turned toward his ship, the rebuilt Midnight Runner. His empire was ready. His army was assembled. And now, they were heading straight for Earth. The final war. The Galactic Council's fleet was waiting. Massive battleships hovered in Earth's orbit, their weapons trained on the planet. Jack's fleet, a ragtag army of smugglers, mercenaries, and outlaws, dropped out of hyperspace. The two forces faced each other. The final battle for chocolate, for freedom, for the galaxy itself, had begun. Jack cracked his knuckles. "All right, boys. Let's make history. His fleet charge. The galaxy would never be the same.